Designing India's AI Safety Institute, India's artificial intelligence ambitions took significant leap forward when Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav announced that the country would launch an indigenous AI model and establish AI Safety Institute under the safe and trusted pillar of India AI mission. Rather than relying on rigid regulations that might quickly become outdated, governments worldwide are establishing artificial AI safety institutes to address the potential AI risk. Since 2023, the US, UK, Singapore, and Japan, among others, are setting up AI safety institutes. These are not just government backed research testing institutes, but a part of global AI safety network that seeks to facilitate common technical understanding of AI risk. Recently, the UK's AI Safety Institute unveiled its open source platform called Inspect to evaluate models in a range of areas such as their core knowledge, ability to reason, and autonomous capabilities. The USS AI Safety Institute convened on an interdepartmental task force to tackle national security and public safety risk posed by AI. Singapore's AI Safety Institute is focusing on content assurance, safe model design, and rigorous testing. Each of these initiatives underscores the need for technical rigor, and international collaboration. India must prioritize imminent local concerns. A critical issue is AI systems' inaccuracy and their potential to perpetuate discrimination in an Indian setting. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology announced that AI Safety Institute is set to operate on a hub and spoke model, collaborating with academic institutions, startups, industry players, and government departments. This will ensure that India's unique socio-economic landscape, linguistic diversity, and technological gaps are addressed. India's vibrant startup ecosystem offers valuable lessons. Startups such as Karya are tackling the problem of unrepresentative data by empowering rural communities to create high quality data sets in Indian languages. Others are advancing multilingual AI development, ensuring inclusivity and accessibility. These efforts highlight how India specific solutions can address technical challenges while fostering social equity. India's AI Safety Institute should build on such initiatives. The AI Safety Institute is already seeking to advance indigenous research and development, leveraging Indian datasets under the safe and trusted pillar. The India AI mission has already selected 8 responsible AI projects and launched the second round of expression of interest. This focus on critical areas such as watermarking and labeling, ethical AI frameworks, risk assessment and management, and deepfake detection tools. Simultaneously, our AI Safety Institute should collaborate with global AI safety institutes to understand and mitigate global risk. It should take a leaf from the Bletchley Declaration signed at the UK AI Safety Summit, which focuses on global threats such as cybersecurity threats and disinformation. India's AI Safety Institute cannot operate in isolation. To effectively govern AI, it must strike a balance between global relevance and global alignment. This requires adopting international standards while adapting them to India's context. Interoperability is key as it enables seamless collaboration and accountability across borders. A crucial first step is to establish global standardized AI safety taxonomy. Today, technical experts, policymakers, and social scientists and legal professionals may use varying technologies for discussing AI related concerns. This divergence and inherent complexity of AI systems creates communication barriers that hinder safety assessments. A standardized taxonomy would enable meaningful multidisciplinary research by ensuring all stakeholders speak the same language when evaluating AI systems and also clearly attributable responsibilities across the AI supply chain. Second, India AI Safety Institute must also support the creation of an international notification framework for AI model development. This framework would encourage AI safety institutes worldwide to share information about the purpose and potential impact of powerful AI models. Such transparency would enable coordinated governance and help India prepare digital infrastructure for safe deployment of advanced AI systems. India's leadership within the global south places it in a unique position to champion inclusive AI governance. Many emerging economies lack the resources and technical expertise to establish their own AI safety institutes. India can lead a collective effort in a global south to co develop AI safety frameworks and evaluation metrics to tackle local challenges. The mighty UNESCO collaboration on India AI readiness provides a strong foundation by identifying gaps in ethical development and deployment of AI. Leveraging these insights, India AI Safety Institute can develop comprehensive frameworks and guidelines that promote both safe AI development and deployment. Additionally, through the ongoing projects under India's IT Ministry's India AI mission, India is focusing on themes such as machine unlearning, synthetic data generation, AI bias mitigation, and privacy enhancing tools. These can serve as building blocks of a robust AI safety ecosystem. India's AI Safety Institute should develop indigenous tools and frameworks that embed responsible AI principles by design. At the same time, it must actively engage with the global AI safety network to ensure interoperability and cooperation. Large crowd gathered in front of Udaigiri police station demanding action against the put man who had put up the post. Large complaints against provocative social media posts against Islam. The Bharatiya Janata Party, which was in power in the state during first two disturbances, invoked the unlawful UAP in 1967 and handed over the probe to NIA amidst opposition to invoking the UAP as unwarranted. In the Udaykiri case, the police has booked writing cases against vandals. Police has begun social media monitoring cells at the district level. Police have filed numerous suo motu cases where they come across inflammatory and derogatory content. However, the challenge is to identify such provocative content before it goes viral and leads to state law and order situations. The limited software that district cells is not compatible with regional languages. Government talks big on gender budget, delivers little. Gujarat allocates more than 37% of its budget to women, while Maharashtra allocates a mere 3%. The union and state governments regularly talk of the commitment to women's empowerment. One of the four pillars of Viksit Bharat 2047 is Mahila or Women. The finance minister mentioned women several times in a 74-minute speech. One of the most powerful tools to show commitment to the cause of women's empowerment is through fiscal backing. This year, the gender budget has increased to 8.9% of total budget. Chart 1 shows that gender budget over the years has a share of overall budget. It is important to note that there is no separate gender budget in the overall budget. Where does the money go? Gender budgets have three components. Part A comprises schemes with 100% provision of for women and girls. Part B comprises schemes with 30 to 90%, and Part C less than 30%. Since the inception of the concept of gender budget, the highest number of ministries departments have reported allocations for gender related schemes this year. 12 new ministries departments have reported allocations for gender related schemes. This indicates that there is a push to diversify the gender budget from the Ministry of Women and Child Development. In the budget speech, Finance Minister mentioned increased allocations to women and said this has been made possible by increasing funds for women-led enterprises. Budget mentioned several promises for men and women-led development, especially in the micro, small and medium enterprises. Only 0.7% of the gender budget has been allocated to the Ministry of MSMEs. Ministry offers schemes such as Mahila Koir Yojana, Entrepreneurship and Skill Development Program, and Scheme for Fund Regeneration of Traditional Industries. The allocation of skill development of women in the entrepreneurial space is only 38 crore, which is 0.0009% of the gender budget. Surprisingly, the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and Capacity Building and Skill Development Scheme under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology have been allocated around 0.23%. Almost 10% of the gender budget has been allocated to Department of School Education, Literacy and Department of Higher Education. Education and technical training are among the pillars of sustainable long-term growth. They provide high literate and skilled workforce. The Agricultural Ministry has contributed most to increase female labor force participation, with the participation rate over the years has only been allotted 4.2% of the gender budget. Interestingly, 15,000 crore of the 18,000 crore of the allocation to Department of Agriculture is to the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, which falls under Part C. Under the scheme, income support of 6,000 per year in three equal installments is provided to all landholding farmer families. However, since the land the women work is mostly owned by men, they will not be benefited from the scheme. Approximately 17% is being allocated to Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Also, 8.9% of the gender budget has been allocated to MGNREGS scheme. While these schemes do empower women, it is important to invest in skill development and provide child and elderly care for long-term empowerment. Further states have varied experiences with allocating fund to women-centric programs. Gujarat allocates more than 37% of its budget to women, whereas Maharashtra allocates a mere 3%. Therefore, there is much conversation about women being the pillars of economic growth in India. The union and state governments are not backing really this promise. The Aadhaar stems the default bet to restrict the voter to one polling location. The integrity of the electoral system in India is dependent on the confidence in it by prospective voters and the participatory political parties. In recent years, the Election Commission of India has drawn flag from overblown to deserved reasons from political parties and civil society activists concerned about trends in Indian democracy. A new complaint after recent state elections related to the increased number of electors in the assembly polls. When compared to the numbers registered in the general election for the same year, while a report in the Hindu found that such discrepancies in electorate registration were not unusual when compared to the previous election cycles, the question raised vociferously by the opposition Congress party as to how a state such as Maharashtra registered an increase of 48 lakh voters in just 6 months since the general election has not been adequately answered by the ECI. This, along with ECI's disclosure that the nature of registration allowed for different electors to have the same elector's photo identification card number, has allowed opposition parties, particularly the Trinamool Congress, to raise questions about the credibility of the registration process. What is worrisome is the possibility of electors voting across states. Prima facie, this discrepancy in epic numbers, which the ECI has averred that it will rectify by updating the numbers in its voter database to make them unique, is not problematic. Even if the epic number is shared by different voters, they can only vote with their verified IDs. Yet, the larger problem of a possibility of voters having multiple epic numbers across different states calls the process in question. For example, a migrant voter can vote in a particular state of residence in his or her home state if elections are held in close succession, as there is a good possibility of duplicate epic number remaining in the database. The most effective solution would be to link Aadhaar number and biometric verification for voting, but this is still not foolproof. The Aadhaar's number purpose is to identify residents and not citizens, and would have to be supplemented by another proof for voting eligibility. Second, the Aadhaar number on electoral rolls could result in misuse such as profiling, and the ECI has to mask it when the rolls are made available to the political parties. Besides biometric Verification for deduplication should be supplemented with clear alternative identity verification, as the former has potential of excluding genuine voters because of technological failures. The ECI must be open to undertaking a clear deduplication exercise that would allow a voter to have only one epic number and one voter ID, with the eligibility to vote only in their area of residence. Against domination, the US is seeking to dictate the terms of engagement in space, just as Firefly Aerospace became the first private entity to soft land a robotic lander on March 2, NASA's acting administration Janet Petros said, the way that we keep America first is by dominating in all the domains of space. And the domain we are going to capture is going to be on the surface of the moon and around the moon. The comment was objectionable in its essence, but also carries a lesson for the rest of the spacefaring world. The US space program remains the wealthiest and more far-sighted in modern history, but like US President Donald Trump, she seems to have lost sight of the difference between leadership and domination. Just the conduct of Mr. Trump and US Vice President at the White House meeting and with the Ukraine President clarified the US's self-serving priorities, so too does Mrs. Petros' comment reveal a nakedly aggressive streak in American policy, in this case what US sees as its rightful place in humankind's aspirations about space. Firefly Space robotic lander on the moon. Firefly Space. The moon and the cislunar space. The moon and the cislunar space and the material and intellectual resources required to access them are part of the Great Commons, and they are already suffering the effects of a growing tide of protectionism worldwide, exacerbated by gaps between evolution of law and the pace of innovation. Regulatory clarity is emerging very slowly and is often stunted. The US Federal Administration FAA recently said that it cannot be held responsible for the fragments of SpaceX rocket that fell over Poland because the FAA lost oversight once SpaceX has lost control of it. Given the bent of the FAA's and Ms. Petros' statements, there is no reason these commons will escape the US's reckless visions of domination without proactive decision making. In the absence of ability to defy its government's orders, NASA's position risks endangering international cooperation, an enviable edifice assembled over decades in the face of an expansive, perilous, time consuming affair in spaceflight, often with NASA input. Irrespective of Ms. Petros' tenure at NASA, her words indicate that the helm person is not beyond being expected to further Mr. Trump's inflammatory rhetoric, if not agenda, in space as well as on the ground. The cooperation must resist this, given the Trump administration's attitude towards other cooperation cooperative efforts such as the fight against climate change, which demands internationalism over provincialism. It is imperative that the national and supranational state space bodies, including the Indian Space Research Organization, come together to cultivate mechanisms to resist unilateral action in space, if not prevent altogether. In the report, Supreme Court seeks regulatory steps against vulgarity online. The, the council's argument that his client, the YouTuber who is now in trouble, had no sense of humor, and that the prohibition would affect his livelihood and that of his 280 employees is ludicrous. Self restraint must form the part of forethought. Of late, social media platforms have content that will have a harmful effect on innocent and sensitive minds and affect the age old institution of family and its values. It is time that there is some sort of censorship machinery to rein in those managing social media platforms. Online vulgarity is a major concern as it remains unchecked and uncensored unless a controversy breaks out. Purveyors continue to ply their trade, unmindful of the fact that they are transgressing all limits. When comedy turns puerile, it ceases to be wholesome, and those who laugh at body shaming or crass and coarse comments should have their heads examined. The Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin advised to people in the state to have more children as a way to handle the delimitation issue is strange. Instead, he could advise them to learn Hindi. Under British rule, people from Tamil Nadu mastered the alien language English and dominated the British administration. People from the state can now do the same Thing with Hindi. This is a strange, immature, unwarranted piece of advice and will dull the perception of Mr. Stalin having a strong and clear mind. Getting a BCom honors seat at Delhi University North Campus is a dream for many like me who have commerce background. But all of a sudden, our hard work, our aspirations have been destroyed by the NTA and the Delhi University after a change in eligibility criterion. Mathematics is now a compulsory subject, replacing the earlier option of accountancy. We were informed about the change recently. Is this the inclusivity that Delhi University and testing agencies talk about? Delhi University says we can apply for the BCom program, but this is a course that is not even found in most of the top colleges. For the last 3 years since the Central University Entrance Test was introduced, BCom Honors was a course that anyone who did either mathematics or applied mathematics or accountancy could apply for. This unfair decision affects thousands. Remodeling the UAE-India Aviation Partnership. During a recent tour of the Navi Mumbai International Airport in Maharashtra, I was deeply impressed by the scale of India's aviation ambitions. Navi Mumbai International Airport has the potential to serve as a game changer in taking India's aviation sector to exciting new heights, providing new avenues for the Indian traveling public to benefit from an increasingly interconnected world. As the pace of growth in India's aviation sector, it is already world's third largest domestic market in terms of passenger numbers, continues to quicken, and the government of India's initiatives such as Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik airport schemes are rapidly implemented. It is essential that an equally visionary approach to regulation and international partnerships is also considered. For decades, the United Arab Emirates has proven itself to be a close strategic partner and friend to India. Today, the UAE is India's most significant and outbound travel market, with over 4.5 million Indian tourists visiting the UAE in 2023. Every week, Indian carriers fly over 600 times to UAE, while UAE carriers operate over 500 weekly services to India. On the surface, these numbers appear significant, however, they are far below meeting current, let alone future consumer demand. The impact of what is effectively a mismatch between supply and demand has directly contributed to spiraling ticket prices and lack of choice for the UAE and Indian traveling public alike. As the pace of growth in Indian aviation sector, it is already the world's third largest domestic market in terms of passenger numbers, continues to quicken, and the government of India's initiatives such as Udan's airport scheme are rapidly implemented. It is essential that an equally visionary approach to regulation and international partnerships is also considered. For decades, UAE has proven itself to be a close strategic partner. Today, UAE is India's most significant outbound travel market, with 4.5 million tourists visiting UAE in 2023. Every week, Indian carriers fly over 600 times to the UAE, while UAE carriers operate over 500 weekly services to India. On the surface, these numbers appear significant, however, they are far below meeting current, let alone future consumer demand. The impact of what is effectively a mismatch between supply and demand has directly contributed to spiraling of ticket prices and lack of choice for the UAE and Indian traveling public alike. Under current bilateral air service agreement arrangements, the UAE carriers are limited to operating to total of only 15 cities and thus have no choice but to ignore the consistent demands of key Indian growth sectors, including Surat, Visakhapatnam, Indore, Tirchi, Patna, to operate services and have under current bilateral air service arrangements, the UAE's carriers are limited to operating to a total of only 15 cities and thus have no choice but to ignore the consistent demands of key Indian growth centers, including Surat, Vishakhapatnam, Indore, Tirchi, Patna, to operate services. Similarly, Indian carriers are unable to increase their level of frequencies to Dubai despite unprecedented interest from Indians to visit family and engage in businesses and leisure activities in these vital global hubs, with estimates suggesting that for every 1% increase in Indian passport holders, a further 10 million Indians will seek to travel overseas. This situation will grow only more acute. Restrictive bilateral regulations will contribute to further increase in price of airline tickets, limit the ability of Indian citizens to travel abroad, and potentially inhibit the advancement of a broader UAE-India investment, trade, and economic partnership. Just as UAE and India have expanded cooperation through trade arrangements such as Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, there is an urgent need for a more progressive and open approach on aviation. A modernized aviation strategy will act as an economic multiplier, drive investment, and ensure that our aviation partnership can become a key pillar of regional and international connectivity and growth. Beyond revisiting the regulatory frameworks that guide our relationship, the UAE is keen to support through new investments and partnerships India's ambition to become global aviation powerhouse, whether the support is in the form of knowledge sharing and training of Indian pilots, partnering in India's rapidly emerging aviation maintenance, repair, and overhaul industry, promoting India's globally renowned tourism sector, investing in the India's government Udan Airport scheme to better connect Tier 2 and Tier 3 Indian cities, or achieving win-win outcomes for our respective airline carriers. It is imperative that we seek new areas of collaboration in this critically important sector. Fundamentally, an important opportunity exists to establish a combined sky and aviation ecosystem that privileges cooperation or competition. Through greater engagement, we can ensure that respective aviation sectors of both our countries are able to grow and succeed while offering citizens of the UAE and India the ability to connect, engage, and thrive. Just as Dubai and Abu Dhabi benefit from their status as global aviation hubs, cities throughout India have the potential to attain similar levels of seamless connectivity better connecting by better connecting and supporting the aviation ambitions of emerging Indian cities. We can together ensure that inclusive and sustainable economic growth are felt not only within India but also far beyond its borders. Enhanced cooperation in the aviation sector is just one example of how UAE-India partnership can evolve to unlock new avenues of mutually beneficial growth and integration, building upon the significant strides we have achieved over recent years in our bilateral strategic ties. Even the sky is not the limit we can achieve in our aviation partnership. Little has changed in the Income Tax Bill 2025. In February this year, Union Finance Minister introduced the Income Tax Bill 2025 in Parliament. If enacted, the legislation will introduce the Income Tax Act 1961 and, according to the government, will simplify laws for both taxpayers and administrators alike. Current law 1961 government claims to become has become unwidely and unclear not only for a common person but also for professionals, littered as it with provisions, exceptions, non-obstant clauses. The newly designed draft purports to clear the fog and foster greater certainty in taxation with a view to reducing litigation and creating a fairer, more predictable tax environment. There can be little doubt that these are worthy causes to pursue, but a reading of the bill shows that behind the cosmetic and structural alterations that it seeks to make, little else will change. Many of the complexities and ambiguities that plague the current legislation remain unbroken, and in some areas, the bill seeks to make into law a set of powers that are troublingly authoritarian, even more so than what the present already severe legislation permits. Jurisdictions across the world have tried to move up towards legislative drafting that promotes the use of plain language, the underlying idea that laws should be more accessible to the broader public, thereby enhancing transparency and making governments more accountable. Some critics argue that plain language and precision do not always go hand in hand, that technicality of legalese ensures greater accuracy and specificity. That a quest for clarity can at times come at a cost of exactness. However, global examples have shown that simplifying legal language is not necessarily detrimental to accuracy. But the bill, despite its wanted objective, scarcely embraces this approach. For instance, we are led to believe that replacement of phrase notwithstanding anything contrary to the contrary and with the words irrespective of anything to the contrary will simplify the law. The use of notwithstanding denotes that what lawyers describe as a non-obstant clause, it has a rich cultural history attached to it. In theory, the word irrespective ought to now be accorded the same meaning, but it is hard to comprehend how this change helps to unravel the law. The bill does seeks to remove the few of the outdated redundancies in the prevailing statute. In places, definitions have become made crisper, and some of the timelines and compliance requirements have been consolidated into tables and schedules. What is more, for all the efforts that the bill seeks to make, its provisions continue to perplex. To make matters worse, despite its intended repeal, the new law also incorporates some existing legislation's clauses. For example, the term income is defined under Section 2, Clause 49 to include a series of things such as profits and gains, dividend and allowances, as well as everything covered under 2 Clause 24 of the present law. If a definition needs reference to the old legislation, one might well wonder what are we really gaining from this exercise. Bringing about textual alterations without altering the statute's basic philosophy presents another problem. Since 1961, India's courts have rigorously interpreted the legislation's provisions, clarifying the law for taxpayers. Now, changes made through the bill may reopen settled debates, subjecting the same provisions to renewed interpretation. Consider one more heavily contested area under the Act, the power of Income Tax Authority to reopen completed assessments. Until April 21, Revenue could make reassessments only if it had reason to believe that income has escaped the tax net, a phrase that sparked endless court battles. The law was then changed to allow reassessments whenever authorities had information suggesting income had escaped assessment. The term information was defined to include, among other things, data obtained through risk management strategy framed by CBIT. However, in a law brimming with definitions, risk management strategy remained undefined. Perhaps the most worrying aspect of the bill is to approach to search and seizure. The current law grants the taxman enormous police power to search person and their properties and seize goods found during the search. Although this authority has been upheld by the courts previously, its validity following the court's judgment in Puttaswamy versus Union of India, where the fundamental right to privacy was affirmed, is suspect. Rather than addressing this concern, Bill extends the power to search into new domains, if does so by allowing to inspect any information stored in electronic media computer system. Computer system is defined widely to include all manners of data storage and what is described as a virtual digital space. Should a taxpayer deny access to these spaces, in sanctioning this, the bill marks a significant departure from the law as it stands. When in times when digital communication is so deeply integrated with both professional and personal life, to permit government easy access to intimate and sensitive information Data is fraught with danger. The bill offers no judicial oversight over these powers. Tribal body defies diktat freeing up roads in Manipur. Committee of the tribal unity says it will agree to centers move only if a separate administration for Kukizo people is created. Adds that the police will be responsible for arrest of the village volunteers. A tribal body in Manipur has decided to defy the center's bid to facilitate movement on all roads linking the Metis dominated Imphal Valley to the country beyond. Two arterial highways and almost all other roads pass through the hills surrounding the Imphal Valley. These hills are largely inhabited by the Kukizo people caught in a now dormant conflict with the non-tribal Métis since the May 2023. On March 1, in the first high-level meeting on the law and order situation in Manipur since the imposition of President rule on February 13, Home Minister Amit Shah directed officials to ensure free movement on all roads from March 8. He also sought strict action against anyone attempting to create obstructions. Committee of Tribal Unity (COTU), however, decided not to allow free movement until the demand for separate administration for Kukizo people was met. At an event held in Kangpokpi district's Fajiang village cemetery on March 3, Koto General Secretary Singset said Kukizo communities would neither rest nor surrender until separate administration was achieved at any cost. The fight for a separate administration will be relentless. We will mobilize, protest, and resist by every democratic means. The Kotu leader also asked Manipur Governor Ajay Kumar Bhalla to retract his statement against separate administration. He also said governors meeting with members of Arambai Tengol, a Metis radical group, does not determine the fate of Kukizo people. Tribal group also said the deputy commissioner and SP of districts dominated by the Kukizo people would be held responsible for any untoward incident that may follow the arrest of village volunteers. In a statement, the Kotu warned tribal members against betrayal of its cause, any individual prioritizing individual interest over the collective cause or aligning with the government will be deemed as a traitor. An official in the state's capital Imphal said the government was committed to facilitating the free movement of goods and people on the highways. Any individual or organization creating hurdles in our efforts to ensure lasting peace in Manipur would be dealt with firmly. Family of UP women executed in UAE asked details of government's efforts. States need to protect patients from being fleeced by private hospitals. No request from assistance from US SEC in Adani bribery case law ministry. Supreme Court directs states UTs to provide full records of forest lands in 6 months. The bench reiterated the expression forest would be understood according to a broad and all-encompassing dictionary meaning as held in the T.N. Godavaram judgment of December 1996 until further court orders. The 1996 judgment, besides including forest understood in the dictionary sense, held that the expression forest in Section 2 of the originally Forest Act would cover all statutorily recognized forests, whether they were designated as reserved, protected, or otherwise. Trump world is uncertain, but India can find opportunities. Jaishankar meets UK PM Starmer cabinet officials. External Affairs Minister with Home Secretary Y. Cooper. India hit targeted maternal mortality rate of 100 deaths per live births. Nadda, India has achieved the National Health Policy target of 100 maternal deaths per 1 lakh live births. The nation also has achieved 83% decline between 1990 and 2020. IMF overexposure by NBFCs may imperil financial system. PM urges industry to come forward and invest. Serbian MPs injured as smokes bomb thrown in parliament. Israel kills Hezbollah Navy commander in Lebanon strike. Blue Ghost moon landing part of US plan to dominate space. US tariffs take effect. China, Mexico, and Canada announce countermeasures. While Canada and Mexico are now to be taxed at 25%, 10% tariffs on Chinese exports. Beijing retaliates with tariffs up to 15% on US farm exports. Ottawa and Mexico to impose their own set of levies. The action plan for weather fluctuations supports farmers by providing logistics, advisory services, and breeder seed produced by Sher Kashmir University. Zelensky calls for truce amid aid cut. A meeting in Washington at the White House did not go the way it was supposed to be. It's regrettable that it happened this way. It is time to make things right. Shah seeks action to rebuild places of worship in Manipur. At the Security Review meeting, Union Minister Amit Shah directed the Manipur administration to restore religious places that had been damaged or vandalized during May 2023 ethnic violence. The move is aimed at providing a healing touch to the Meitei and Kukizo communities, the official said. In August 23, the state had informed the Supreme Court that 386 religious institutions of both communities suffered damage. Court directed in September 23 that the state government should immediately identify all the religious buildings, including churches, Hindu temples, Sanmahi temples, mosques, or any building of any religion, and protect these from encroachment and further damage. Mr. Shah reviewed Manipur's security scenario on March 1 for the first time since the state was placed under President's rule. A statement by Ministry of Home Affairs said Mr. Shah directed officials to ensure that free movement of people on all roads across state by March 8 and also work on early completion of the fencing of the Manipur-Myanmar border and dismantling of the drug network in the state. The official said the Home Minister also emphasized that all looted weapons should be recovered by June 30. A large number of weapons are either with civilians or insurgent groups active in the state. Delhi government will clear Bhalswa landfill by March 2026. There are two more landfills in the city, one at Gazipur in East Delhi and other at Okhla in South Delhi. Bhalswa landfill in Northwest Delhi will be cleared by March 2026. So that's all in this one. See you in the next.